James P. Sully Sullivan and his friend Mike Wazowski were on a scare duty at Monsters, Inc. Sully stepped through a door and looked around. There was no one there.
Mike?
Said Sully, poking his head back through the door.
This room's empty.
What are you talking about? Said Mike, shoving past Sully into the room. This kid's always asleep by now. Sully shrugged.
I guess we should go back to Monstropolis. I've got lots of other kids to scare tonight.
But as Sully turned towards the door, his tail knocked it shut. Meanwhile, on the scare floor, George Sanderson and his right-hand man Charlie were working the same neighborhood as Mike and Sully. They saw an activated door, but no one appeared to be manning it. Huh, said Charlie when he saw the unmanned door. Looks like Mike and Sully accidentally left this one on. We'd better turn it off, George said. It isn't safe to leave a door to the human world active. Back in the human world, Sully reopened the closet door, but when he did, all he saw was the inside of the closet.
The door back to the scare floor isn't working,
said Sully.
We're gonna have to find another house with a working door, and fast.
Mike and Sully crept through the house and stepped outside.
Remember,
Sully said,
don't touch anything.
Mike nodded. All the monsters knew humans were toxic. But as he looked around, he realized he didn't see any humans. Instead, the streets were full of monsters. What's going on? Mike asked, scratching his head. Are we back in Monstropolis? Suddenly, Mike and Sully heard a voice from behind them. They spun around. A small monster was standing there peering at them. I like your costumes, she said before running off. Mike and Sully looked at each other. Costumes? What could possibly be going on? Mike and Sully looked back at the street. There weren't only monsters walking around. They also saw a ghost, a black cat, a pumpkin with legs, and all kinds of other creatures. Suddenly, one of the monsters pulled off its face. Mike and Sully gasped. It wasn't a monster after all. It was a child wearing a mask. They weren't back in Monstropolis. They were surrounded by human children wearing disguises. Sully did his best to stay calm.
Well, we have to find a door back to Monsters, Inc. now,
he said. George is working this neighborhood too tonight, Mike said. If we can catch one of his doors in time, we can get back through. Mike and Sully tried to find a way inside one of the nearby homes, but it wasn't easy. They had to dodge children left and right, and there were people at the front of almost all of the homes. Mike and Sully managed to sneak into a few houses, but none of the doors inside were powered up. In one house, they got to the bedroom just as George was leaving. George! Mike and Sully shouted, racing for the open closet door. Wait for us! But they weren't fast enough. George hadn't heard them. Click. The door closed behind him. Mike and Sully opened the closet door, but there was no scare floor behind it. Just a closet filled with children's clothing. Mike and Sully were beginning to worry. They needed to get back to Monstropolis before one of those kids touched them. It's getting pretty late, said Mike. Do you think any of the doors back at the scare floor are still in use?
I sure hope so,
said Sully. Then Mike and Sully noticed a house with no one around. The front door was flung wide open. Maybe this was their ticket home. Come on, let's go, said Sully. Mike and Sully tiptoed inside the house, but as they crept towards the door, they heard sounds of talking and laughter. The house wasn't empty like they thought. Oh no, said Sully when he realized what was going on. We're in the middle of a party, Mike exclaimed. Whoa, said someone behind Mike and Sully. The two spun around. A boy stood there, staring at them. Cool Halloween costumes. Mike and Sully slowly began to back away.
Mike?
Said Sully.
It's Halloween.
Oops, said Mike. I guess I missed that memo. Hey! The The boy called to his friends, "Come check out these cool monster costumes." Mike and Sully shrank backward as a group of children approached them. "Your costumes look so real," a little girl exclaimed. "Can I touch the fur?" She reached a hand toward Sully. Mike shrieked, "No!" Sully roared. Sully had forgotten how big and frightening he was. The kids screamed at the top of their lungs and ran away. But Mike and Sully were the most terrified of all. "Let's get out of here," Mike shouted, and he and Sully turned and ran. Mike pulled Sully into the closet bedroom and slammed the door behind them. "Please, please, please let this door work," Mike said.
What are the chances George is using this door?
Asked Sully. "Slim," said Mike. "But we have to try." Mike and Sully crossed their fingers. Then they opened the door and it worked! They walked back onto the scare floor at Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully breathed a huge sigh of relief. They made it home safe. On the other side, they found George and Charlie. "What are you guys doing coming through this door?" asked George. "I was just about to scare the kid on the other side."
You saved us,
said Sully.
Our door was broken.
"Oops," Charlie said. "We thought you left it on by accident. We shut it down. Sorry." "Huh, it's okay," Mike said. "We're back now, but whatever you do not go through that door." "Why not?" George asked.
It's Halloween and kids are everywhere,
Sully explained. Mike shivered. Halloween is the scariest day ever. The end.